So, who wants to hear the good news? People of Suffolk, please listen up to this.
So a couple of weeks ago, our landlord told us that he wants to increase the rent by £200 for the entire property.
Housing prices are about to collapse 30% in 2025. We just broke the record for mortgage delinquencies. We smashed the 2008 record.
Labour says it's going to fix Britain's housing crisis, but what are they actually going to do?
This is the reason why most people in London are never going to be able to buy a house, unless they get it through inheritance or they have insane corporate jobs earning £250,000 a year or more.
And how people understand the price increase for nearly every business out there other than landlords.
And we moved into our property 3 years ago, and in them 3 years the rental market has increased so much that we could not afford to live where we live.
Alright, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the UK rental and housing crisis. If you're living in Britain right now, you probably don't need a news report to tell you that rent prices are skyrocketing. Buying a home feels like a fantasy, and even finding a halfway decent flat has turned into some sort of Hunger Games audition. For years we've been told, just save up, work hard, and you'll get on the property ladder. But in reality, wages haven't kept up. Landlords are cranking up rents, and government promises to fix the crisis feel like empty words. From young professionals stuck paying half their salary on rent, to families being squeezed out of their own neighbourhoods, the situation is spiralling. In this video, we're breaking down why the UK's housing market is so broken, who's really benefiting, and why so many people feel like they'll never have a place to call home.
Housing prices are about to collapse 30% in 2025. We just broke the record for mortgage delinquencies. We smashed the 2008 record. That's right, that biggest housing collapse in the history of the world. We just broke the record for mortgage delinquencies right now, present day. Now, we've already entered a recession, and 2024 was a terrible time to buy a home. We know homes are too expensive. We know the normal mortgage payment. We know people can't afford the cost of living. There's no choice but for these prices to collapse. Now, I want to be clear. This is not single-family homes. This is multi-family homes, but it's all interconnected. There is many people that bought at way too high and took on way too much debt. So by the end of this year, I expect single-family homes to look identical to this, and I expect most areas to have an average of 20 to 30% of drop in home prices. We've already seen 10 to 15% in a lot of areas, but there are going to be some other areas of the country that get much worse than 20 or 30%. I don't think we're going to go back to 2018 levels, but we could see some places go back to 2020 levels for the home prices.
Labour says it's going to fix Britain's housing crisis, but what are they actually going to do? Housing is one of the Labour Party's top priorities in their 2024 manifesto. Labour promises to overhaul the entire planning system to get homes built faster and cheaper. They say councils will get new powers and the red tape slowing down house building will be slashed. Labour is also looking at major tax reforms. The Labour Party are currently looking at imposing a national property tax to replace current stamp duty. Local property tax is to replace your council tax, and they're even looking at taxing landlords' rental income by charging national insurance to raise £2 billion for the Treasury. But critics of the plan say this could make landlords sell up and make the rental market even worse for tenants and open up the doors to huge American investment funds like BlackRock and Blackstone, who are currently buying up UK residential houses by the thousands. So, do you trust the Labour Party to fix the housing crisis? Let me know.
If you're renting and you need a guarantor and your guarantor needs to earn 30 times the amount of rent that you pay, where does this leave the population where their parents are dead or on benefits? Just help me understand. Just saw the most heartbreaking video by Boo Witchy, who is going through an ordeal right now in terms of her housing. But it's actually a discussion I had with my friend this week. You could be a renter that's in an existing property, never ever miss paying your rent. Now you need to move because of whatever variety of circumstances. But the guarantor thing is an issue, especially if you're in London. I mean, I'm not being funny. The rents in London are absolutely crazy. Finding someone who earns 30 times the average rent in London is insane, especially as London salaries have not kept in line with everything else. Now I'm hearing other things that are being thrown into it. So not only do they have to earn that, they also have to be homeowners. We're living in a time where people are not able to afford homes. We are generally seeing the housing system eat itself now. Like, it genuinely cannot be sustained. I remember trying to rent years ago, like almost a decade ago, call it, and I needed a guarantor. And my parents weren't able to help. If you come from a low-income family or a low-income background, what's going on? What do you do? There are going to be thousands of people who are going to be priced out of renting, not being able to also get a guarantor. What do you do if you don't have a guarantor? Please, let me know.
So, who wants to hear the good news? People of Suffolk, please listen up to this and share this video as far and as wide as possible and with everyone you know. Because this is going to be the first county council and the last county council to do this. Suffolk County Council have now been housing asylum seekers in brand new £300,000 homes. These homes have electric charging points, underfloor heating, ensuite bathrooms. Yes, Suffolk County Council have given a £300,000 home to asylum seekers. While in 2024, there was over 800 people on their waiting list to be housed. Now, have all the people been housed? I don't think so. Guys, get this video as far and as wide as possible for everyone to find out exactly what Suffolk have been doing. £300,000 homes for families they're not even from here. While our families are living in fucking box rooms, living with their parents, can't afford ends meet.
Sir Keir Starmer confirms that from September 1st, 2025, rent in the UK will be calculated in a new way directly linked to a tenant's salary. Under this change, landlords will be required to set rent based on income, with the amount limited to around 30% of monthly earnings. For people on lower wages, the rent will be capped lower, while in high-demand areas, those earning more may be asked to pay slightly higher within set limits. To ensure the system works, landlords will need to declare tenant income through HMRC, and records will be automatically cross-checked, with penalties of up to £6,500 for anyone not following the rules. Officials say this step is designed to keep housing fair and sustainable, preventing rental costs from rising beyond reach. Supporters believe it will create balance and give families more security, while others raise concerns that it may add challenges for landlords and tenants in practice. Whatever your view, one fact is clear: September 2025 is set to bring one of the most significant changes to the UK rental market in years, shaping how millions of people manage their homes.
This is the reason why most people in London are never going to be able to buy a house, unless they get it through inheritance or they have insane corporate jobs earning £250,000 a year or more. Alright, the first big topic is rent. Most people are renting while they're saving for a deposit. The problem in London is that rents are absolutely through the roof, and the majority of your money that you earn and that you're trying to put aside to build your deposit for a property is being spent on rent. So if you're spending that much money on rent, you don't have enough surplus to then start stacking and afford a deposit for a house. So you're in a cycle of just paying your rent, having to live somewhere, paying your rent, and then not being able to save for a deposit. And it just lengthens the time and the age at which you're able to buy a property, and just makes things really, really, really hard. Most people's mortgage payments would be on par with the rent that they're paying for the similar property that they're staying in. So for most people who are renting a property right now, their mortgage payments, if they had a mortgage on it, would be probably lower or same as the rent which they're paying. The problem is people can't afford to save for a deposit because they're paying so much in rent. And also the mortgage applications typically lend you 4.5 times your yearly salaries. So for a lot of properties in London, you're looking at zones 2 to 3, you're looking at £750,000 plus. Let's say your household income is £100,000. You can then borrow £450,000. So your deposit would have to make up the rest, which is £300,000. Who do you know who has a £300,000 deposit? So this is fundamentally the massive problem when it comes to living in London and buying property in London. It's just very, very difficult for anyone to get on the ladder. And then once you do, you know, all of your savings have been depleted to go into a house. And in my opinion, I like to have investments. I like to have things that do go up in value aside from property. And you just have no more exposure to stock market, crypto, or any other hustles you got going on. So all of your money's tied up in your house, and essentially you are house rich but cash poor. And for me personally, that's never a situation that I want to be in because it's just not favourable. But let me know, do you agree with my points? What are your thoughts on the housing market in London? Do you think it can be helped or solved in any way?
It's definitely being gutted and decimated, basically, to be completely honest. More and more people are moving out unless there's significant change. That's just going to continue to be the case.
Things have changed. To be quite honest, it's just become a sort of middle class and persons that are moving in. There's hardly any families around. There's hardly any, working class people around.
A lot of stuff has been shutting down, that like pubs, clubs and stuff like that is really shit, to be honest. It's definitely less affordable than it was. Like my rent has gone up every year for however long. I live in an increasingly like small space, I think. Like eventually you are like, can I continue to just live like this the rest of my life and like never be able to build up any savings or like maybe develop any security? It's just like endlessly getting bled dry by landlords. It's really long.
When I speak to friends from other parts of the city, it's pretty much the same thing. It's like you can't get a council house. You either can't afford to rent like a privately rented flat basically, or you pay like 50, 60, sometimes even more % of like your income to live there.
I was part of the people that got kicked out, that got really squeezed out of Tottenham and sort of became homeless in 2020. Tottenham was sort of thriving. It was multicultural. The rent was actually reasonable. It was a vibrant, community. There was a plan to regenerate the area. People were just moving out of Tottenham in droves, in numbers.
I'm not saying the 80s, 90s, the 2000s, like when I grew up was perfect. It definitely wasn't. But London could look like how it looked in terms of the community that was there and is still there in some parts that haven't been completely gentrified. So if we protect that and keep London what it is, then it can be a city where community thrives, as opposed to one where we make it more and more every single day, just like a playground for rich people.
Whatever you do to London, the energy of like what it could be and what it still is, it's always bubbling along under the surface, do you know what I mean? And peeking through the cracks. And there's a lot of energy there, and I think it will explode at some point, and it does explode sometimes.
Landlords are the prices are raising and nobody is actually putting a cap on it. London is for everyone, and I just think that, the government really needs to do an overall into what's happening before actually a riot starts happening, because one day, to be quite honest, people are going to get very, very frustrated and they're going to rebel and they're going to hit out because they've had enough.
Do you know what I don't understand? I don't understand how people understand the price increase for nearly every business out there other than landlords. Like, you would understand if your barber told you the price of his chair has increased and the cost of hair products has increased, therefore he needs to dash a little £3 on the trim. You may grumble, but you'd get it. You wouldn't look at my man as Satan. You understand when your favourite restaurant has increased the price of their meals. You'd understand when you go to the supermarket every week and you see the increase of butter, milk, cheese and eggs. You may grumble again, but you understand, like, there's a logical process that happens in your brain to let you know food inflation. Farmers have probably charged the retailers more money for their produce, so they have to obviously pass it on to the consumer. They're not going to swallow the amount. Do you know what I mean? But when it comes to landlords, we should never increase our rents. Mortgages doubled, doesn't matter, you pay for it. Call out fee for plumbers and gas engineers, doesn't matter, you pay for it. We need a new boiler, 3,000 to 5,000, doesn't matter, you pay for it. So you want us to absorb all the costs, but you wouldn't expect any other business to do that. Whether people like it or not, landlords provide a service. We provide homes, we maintain the properties. So yes, we are small businesses. And I don't understand why landlords are hated so much. Yes, you get some greedy ones. Yes, you get some bad ones. Just like every other field in this world, you get greedy businessmen. But it's whether you want to pay for the rent or not. If you see a woman advertising her boho braids for 350, you either pay for it and get it done, or you don't. You find a cheaper option. But we're the ones who are the demons, Satan, for either increasing our rent or putting our rent to the highest possible for us to collect our rent. Like, I don't get it. We're trying to make money like everybody else.
I just need to have a little rant about how hard it is to be an adult in this current economy. So I live in the south of England, I live in Essex, and we rent our property. Now, we moved into our property 3 years ago, and in them 3 years, the rental market has increased so much that we could not afford to live where we live if we wasn't already living here. And what I mean by that is if we moved out, our landlord could increase our rent by about £600 to £800 a month to meet with market. And at the moment they're capping the landlord at 10%, so they can only increase our rent by 10%. We have got so many outstanding maintenance issues to the point where I'm starting to think, are they just leaving us like this because it's actually beneficial for them to piss us off so much that we leave, because then they're going to get like £800 a month extra rather than just paying for the repairs. And even if they paid for the repairs before they moved the new person in, within 2 months the repairs would have been paid for by that new person. But we can't afford to buy because we need 2 years of our own salary to put a deposit down. And obviously we're paying someone else's mortgage, so we can't save because there's no extra money. Our rent goes up every year. Our rent has gone up by the full 10%, which we're currently negotiating because they've not given us the proper notice and things like that. And I don't feel like you're taught this stuff in school. So like, if I didn't know people that was in the industry that I could ask these questions to, I would just have to go along with it and just be like, yeah, okay. But the fact is, if I've got outstanding maintenance issues, which are severe, by the way, we had a gas leak yesterday because they ignored something and it could have been fixed back in February when I raised it. But now they're trying to charge me more because I've had to reply to my email because I have an emergency gas leak. How messed up is this? So then I'm like trying to find somewhere else potentially to live, but I can't because everywhere's so expensive compared to what we're paying. So I'm stuck. I'm literally stuck because I don't have a deposit for a house, even though my salary would cover a mortgage and more. We would be better off monthly having a mortgage, but because we can't get the deposit together because we're paying someone else's mortgage, we have to continue paying extortionate rent prices. And I don't even live anywhere that's like fancy. Like, I live in a town which has not a lot going on, which is fine for me. That's not me complaining. I love where we live. I'd love to stay where we are, and we intend to stay where we are as long as things get sorted. But I'm feeling like, are they doing all this because they want us to get so annoyed and just move? But the reality is we can't move because this is all we can physically afford. Obviously I'm on statutory maternity leave. Like, I can't just up and leave. We have a child, we have a dog, we have so many limitations, and they're just making it so difficult. And I just needed to get on my soapbox because I just don't understand how we're meant to adult and, you know, improve the economy and do all these things when you can't do right or wrong. Like, they want us to buy, but they make it so difficult to buy. So they want to keep us renting, but now they've made the rent so high that we can't move. And then if you are a landlord, you're penalised. It's just a hot mess express. And I just don't understand where we go from here. I have no point to this. I just needed to blurt it out on the internet so that someone else can come in the comments and be like, same. Because I doubt I'm the only person that's dealing with this. And our landlord doesn't even live in the country, so we deal with an estate agent. So I'm like, does the landlord even know what's happening to his property? Like, you know? Yeah. Good luck to anyone else renting in this economy.
So a couple of weeks ago, our landlord told us that he wants to increase the rent by £200 for the entire property. Our tenancy is coming up for renewal, which is why this has been brought up now, and many people are facing the similar situation with a hike in rent increase because of all the stuff that's going on with inflation and the property market at the moment. However, this has particularly infuriated me and my flatmates because our landlord is nothing short of a grade A CUNT. When I saw the rent increase email, I honestly just saw red because it just proves that landlords can really do whatever the fuck they want. Because in our property since October last year, we've had a leak coming from the ceiling, as in an active leak. It's constantly dripping, which has now caused black mold. So this is the black mold in question. I think it's black mold. All I know is that it's mold and it's black, ergo black mold. We have mold growing in other areas of the house. In several areas of the house, the paint is peeling because the walls are damp internally. So there's some sort of leak going on in the rest of the structure of the house. The electrics, where the leak is obviously completely fucked. Like, the lights won't turn on because there's literal water leaking into the light bulbs constantly. Our living room is also built on a manhole, which in 2021 caused it exploded basically and flooded the entire downstairs. The whole downstairs had to get redone, and even with the downstairs getting redone, the paint is still peeling, and they haven't sealed that manhole properly, meaning that often we get a waft of sewage smell coming into this living room. There are a bunch of other more minor issues, but the audacity of like increasing the rent without taking any action to actually improve any of these issues it's just disgusting. I absolutely hate being in a position where you have a problem and it feels like you're completely powerless to do anything about it. So I try to, number one, I hate that I've had to like kill them with kindness, because if we aggravate him, he gets really pissed off. And one time he's literally screamed at me on my doorstep because I asked to make a copy of a garden key. Like, he literally threatened me. And we've also learned from his temperament that if we, list things how they are and be honest and real, again, he takes it badly. So I had to write this completely fake email being like, oh, we understand you've not had the time because you're a property empire billionaire who, is just so busy with all his other properties that he can't come and fix the black mold in our house. But we think the rent increase is slightly too much, all things considered. And realistically, I don't even think that's going to do anything or have the desired result. I even called Citizens Advice to understand what our rights are as renters, and honestly, it's just so limited. Like, you would think that, a landlord, if we're paying this rent, whatever, I'll buy it because I have to. I can't afford to buy my own place. But your duty as a landlord should be to maintain the property so that there's no health risks, but also so that it's a comfortable and nice place to live. However, the majority of landlords just aren't doing that. Or maybe it's not a majority, but I just hear a lot of people complaining about how ill or poor maintained their property is, in spite of us having to pay ridiculous rent. From Citizens Advice, I basically learned that there's not really much we can do about it. So we've tried to negotiate it down and then using that as an opportunity to get him to solve the issues. However, he can still turn around and say no. And if we don't want to pay it, then we just essentially have to get, no fault eviction and have to go elsewhere. The agent that I spoke to also said, in terms of the mold and everything like that, we could get someone from environmental health to come over and they will assess it. And then if they think it needs to be actioned soon, they'll give him an improvement notice. However, this brings up the same issue again of aggravating the landlord to the point where, so if he's served an improvement notice, he can't evict us for 6 months, but I'm pretty sure you can guess what's going to happen at the end of the 6 months. Eviction. And some people will probably ask, why don't you just move? And we did consider that, but when we've looked at the market, again, at the moment, the market is awful. Essentially, we would be paying more for a significant downgrade, and there's also no guarantee that the next landlord will be any better. Pretty much all the landlords I've had since I've been living in London have been terrible and equally as bad when it comes to resolving issues on the property. So yeah, I just feel so frustrated and fed up with this. Like, okay, buy as many properties as you want, but I just think it's disgusting how ill-maintained so many properties are. And it's like, you're really fucking with people's livelihood. Like, we're in a position where we're having to beg for you to make it a nicer place to live on basic things. Like, we're not asking for fancy painting or furniture. We're literally just asking for there not to be black mold or smells or things that would pretty much disrupt most people's living conditions when we're paying so much rent as well. Part of me wants to set up some sort of like website or reporting system where tenants can anonymously name and shame bad landlords and outline the issues. Because at this point, it's like, I don't know what we can do, because as I said, we're in a powerless situation where the options are deal with it or leave. And both of those are stressful because if you stay here and stick with it, obviously you're having your livelihood impacted, potential health risks associated with things like mold. But then if you're moving, as I said, there's a whole host of other issues and uncertainties that come with that. Yeah, honestly, I'm done.
London. We are still living in the ghost of the British Empire. Question. Do you know this man? Are you familiar with him? Do you know who he is? You really fucking should. This is Hugh Grosvenor. He is the 7th Duke of Westminster. We are the same age. But while my landlord is trying to unlawfully evict me for refusing to agree to a 12% rent increase after only 12 months, he controls most of central London. That's the lottery of life, isn't it? You walk across his properties all the time. He owns most of Mayfair, Belgravia. You know that place, Grosvenor Square? They're not just pretty postcodes. They're part of a 300-acre central London estate that this man owns. He did not get that from hard work. He did not get it because he's royalty. He didn't even get it because of conquest. What this man inherited that wealth from is a marriage deal that occurred in 1677 between his great times 8, as in his great grandfather, whose name was Thomas. Thomas married a 12-year-old girl named Mary Davis. Mary Davis was the only child of a wealthy colonial banker. Her father died when she was 3 years old, and she inherited 500 acres of what was at the time farmland in London, unheard of now. Thomas Grosvenor was 21 and already the mayor of Chester when he married this child. The marriage was carefully arranged by her guardians to secure this vast central landholding. Until I came to London, Mayfair and Belgravia were names that I only ever associated with the Monopoly board. They were the most expensive addresses on the Monopoly board. It's very rarely talked about how that all came to be. But when that land was still open meadow, it was acquired by the Grosvenor estate through a child marriage. And places like Grosvenor Square are living fossils of Britain's feudal land system. This is really important context for every London renter because it is the backdrop to every tenancy agreement. The council itself says the private rental sector is the largest tenure in the city. Behind the high rents that you pay sit structures like this. In January 2025, the Grosvenor Group, Hughes Property Company, sold 175 buildings in Mayfair to Norway. Now, a huge chunk of central London is not owned by anybody British. It's owned by Norges Bank Investment Management. Those are not people. They do not live in the UK. They want to extract the highest rent as possible from Londoners.
You know, after talking about all this, the saddest part is that none of it is new. The housing and rental crisis in the UK didn't appear overnight, and it certainly didn't blindside anyone. For years, politicians, economists, and everyday citizens have been warning that the housing market was spiralling out of control. And yet, here we are in 2025, still having the same conversations, still watching rents climb faster than wages, and still seeing young people give up on the idea of ever owning a home. As someone actually living here, this doesn't feel like a headline or a number in a government report. It feels like real life squeezing tighter every single month. The problem is painfully simple. Housing has stopped being about homes and has turned into an investment game. For too long, the UK has treated property as a way to make money instead of a basic human need. Flats and houses aren't built primarily for people to live in. They're built for profit, snapped up by investors, often left empty, while the rest of us fight tooth and nail just to keep a roof over our heads. And let's be honest, it's exhausting. Every time you look at listings, the prices have jumped again. You spend half your paycheck or more on rent for a flat that's damp, cold, and falling apart because landlords know they can get away with it. Why? Because there's always someone desperate enough to take it, no matter how unfair it is. If you complain, you risk being kicked out because protections for tenants are so weak that speaking up often means losing your home. That's the reality. That's the crisis. But beyond the frustration, beyond the numbers, this is breaking people. Families are cutting back on food just to cover rent. Young adults are stuck living with their parents well into their 30s, not because they're lazy, but because saving for a deposit while paying ridiculous rent is like trying to fill a bucket with holes in it. Teachers, nurses, essential workers, they can't even afford to live near the communities they serve anymore. And when the very people who keep society running can't afford to stay in their own cities, you know the system is broken. So, what needs to change? Because ranting about the problem isn't enough. We have to look at solutions. First, we need serious investment in social housing. For decades, social housing has been neglected, underfunded, or outright sold off. Council homes used to be a safety net, a way for working families to live with dignity without handing over most of their income to private landlords. But with Thatcher's right to buy scheme and the failure to replace those homes, we gutted that safety net. If the government actually invested in building high-quality, affordable social housing, it wouldn't just help the people who move into those homes, it would take pressure off the entire rental market by reducing demand. Second, we need stronger rent controls and tenant protections. Right now, landlords have far too much power. They can hike rents whenever they feel like it, and tenants are left scrambling to keep up or face eviction. Other countries manage to balance landlord rights with tenant protections. Why can't we? We need caps on annual rent increases, minimum quality standards for rental properties, and actual enforcement to make sure landlords aren't pocketing money while their tenants live in unsafe, mouldy, or unfit homes. Renting shouldn't feel like a punishment. It should be a fair exchange. Third, we need to crack down on empty properties and speculative investment. How many flats in London sit empty because they're just investment assets for overseas buyers? How many new builds are priced so ridiculously that no ordinary working person can ever dream of buying them? If housing is being treated like a stock market instead of shelter, the government has to step in. Taxes on empty homes, limits on foreign ownership, and prioritising affordable housing developments over luxury apartments nobody local can afford. That's where change has to happen. Fourth, wages and housing policies have to finally meet reality. Wages in the UK haven't kept pace with inflation, let alone with rental and housing costs. It doesn't matter how many affordable homes the government claims to build if affordable is defined as 80% of market rate in a market that's already broken. We need a definition of affordability that actually matches people's incomes, not one that just makes the numbers look good on paper. And finally, we need a cultural shift in how we see housing. For too long, the narrative has been that owning a home is the ultimate goal, the ultimate measure of success. The changes we need aren't impossible. They're just inconvenient for the people making money off our misery. But that's exactly why we need to keep speaking up, keep demanding, and keep fighting for a fairer system. Because no matter what politicians or landlords say, we know the truth. Everyone deserves a place to call home.